software often means wrestling with slow, unreliable pipelines. Andy was stuck in that loop until Dagger gave him a faster, more reliable way to ship across every platform. Let's learn more about his story.
I've had a bunch of different careers through the course of my life. For a good stint there, I was in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, just go hopping, like sort of working at one startup, and that startup would collapse, and then go to the next startup, and that startup would collapse. And then at a startup, you tend to be a jack of all trades. But as like a startup grew, the sort of niche I would typically have would be like server engineer, typically like creating custom networking appliances that would run server side to handle a specific task. Like a sort of messaging app was one of the companies I worked for a good while ago. Yeah, so and I was really got into concurrency, and I've actually like invented my own async concurrent frameworks, one in Python and then one in Lua. I was like, what would you look like? What would it look like if you just like built services out of small little CLI tools? And so the thinking being, then you would never have to have batteries required again. Like once the CLI exists, you can plug it into any structure. So I've kind of been on that path for a while. The most tangible thing I've done since then is creating a local first event sourcing store called Crossstream. And so basically Crossstream is meant to be a way that you can orchestrate systems out of small tools in a way you kind of still keep sane. It's like it's a yeah, there's a little local first event streaming store, and you kind of register things with it, and it takes care of like running whatever you register with it. And so you can kind of like just build up apps out of little small tools. I have this small little HTTP server. It's like new shell scriptable. So going back to the whole small tool things, is like how do you build systems out of little CLI tools? So, but then I found new shell, which is this. It's a new shell. It's like a Rust based shell, and it's actually I think the Dagger team would really appreciate it. It's basically about pipeline programming. And so as soon as I found it, I was like, okay, I found for this like crazy paradigm I was shooting for. I found my orchestration language. So I have this little HTTP server. It's called HTTP-new, and it embeds new shell in it. So you can create HTTP services just out of small little new shell scripts, which means you can create HTTP services by gluing CLI tools together. So I was on the new shell Discord, and I don't know if this is jumping ahead. I used a sort of asked if I could generate Windows binaries, and I don't have access to a Windows machine. I thought, oh yeah, I'll just have GitHub build one for me. So I just asked an LLM to create like a GitHub workflow to build a Windows binary and push it up. And so I'd say LLM didn't work. And I was like, this is crazy. It felt like just running through quicksand. Yeah, I've actually had this beef with traditional CI/CD for, I feel like all creators like need instant feedback from their tools. Like as they're creating, the more you can reduce the latency between an action and you getting feedback as a creator, you can just move so much faster. And so traditional CI/CD is like if big companies, if the CI/CD pipeline takes 30 minutes, they're kind of like, oh, we're doing pretty well. What's the point in even optimizing this? When just making a one character change takes 30 minutes to test, it just really slows your velocity down. So then I remembered it was a bit over a year ago now, it might even be approaching 2 years ago. I saw Solomon on DevTools FM, and partly because I'm super into event sourcing, which is like event streams, which is a DAG, but also just because I've like had this pain with CI/CD pretty much forever. And I was kind of looked at it, I was like, wow, this is like really cool, but it didn't like immediately couldn't see like a way anyway. So after about like 2 hours of iterating this way, so maybe I tried four different changes to this file in 2 hours. I was like, this is it. I've been looking for a reason to try Dagger out. And so I just spun it up, and then before I knew it, like I had the Dagger pipeline that was going to generate the Windows build, and it didn't work. And so, but it was like I was working at a VM, but like basically local to me. And then I just dropped an LLM on the box and just let it churn as well, make this Dagger pipeline pass, and the LLM just churned, and like feedback between iterations became like tens of seconds instead of tens of minutes. And so then the LM got the Dagger pipeline to work. It's so now for this particular project, there's a Dagger pipeline to produce binaries for four platforms: macOS, Windows, and then Linux for ARM64 and for yeah, x86. And so they're all just done with Dagger pipelines. And then so the GitHub workflow now is just run Dagger. So not very, but basically Dagger 101. So this is the repo. Here, there's a clean example. But this is yeah, like what a hello world web looks like. But yeah, and then so if I go to actions, binaries, so this one. Great. Yeah. So these are just four different Dagger functions. 2, 3, 4, and then it creates a release once all four pass. So this is the repo more or less locally. Yeah, and so you can kind of like see what custom functions are available. Yeah, and so then if you I prepared this one earlier. Um, build or yeah, so it's just Dagger core window build, and it launches the window build. And it did the first time I ran that, it took about 10 minutes to run. But now it's like because Dagger takes care of caching each of the steps for you. It's now which and so that's really nice that once it's kind of run up to a point, replay is like instantaneous because then if there is a failure, you can really just grind at that point in the workflow, and you like it's like 3 seconds feedback to see if a change made any difference or not. Basically, like going forward, I won't ever write a traditional GitHub workflow ever again. Like it's kind of like it's almost like why would you not use Dagger? Um, if that, yeah, like it- because we're basically all of the GitHub workflow has just become like Dagger Go kind of thing, which is like that's all this is. And then the thing that's going is the exact same thing you had working locally. I mean, gosh, I'm like it's super obvious. It's like the front page of Dagger again. For me, that I'd like to get across is like the reduction in latency, which like I feel like yeah, CI/CD pipelines are just notoriously just terrible for feed like the push and pray that people just like there's people just come to expect it. Like CI/CD is just this horrible push and pray experience, and it doesn't have to be anymore.